going to do some properties and examples of radical expressions. In this video, we're mainly going to use the product property because the second video will get more into the quotient property. But for this one, what I'm going to do is just illustrate with an example of the product property. So basically it says, for example, if I have the square root of 63 and square root, that means I want a perfect square. I can do this as square root of 9 times 7. I can break this up as the square root of 9 times the square root of 7, and that's going to give me this 3 times the square root of what? 7. Okay, so that's just basically the product property simplified. Now for the quotient property, we have something like square root of 3 over 8, and that would be equal to, you can break it up, that's all it's saying, cube root of 3 over the cube root of 8, and that would be the cube root of 3 over 2, and another one might be cube root of 5 over, say, 27, so that would be cube root of 5 over the cube root of 27, which would just be the cube root of 5 over 3. So those are your properties, basically. And the main ones we're going to work on is more complicated product properties. So, for example, we have this one. So we're going to write this as 5 times the square root of 9 times 6. This equals 5 times the square root of 9 times the square root of 6, which equals 5 times 3, because this equals 3, times the square root of 6, so we get 15 times the square root of 6. Okay, for this one, we do the same thing. Here's the 3. Now I want a cube root of something, so I'm going to use 8, because the cube root of 8 is 2. So I know that 8 times 3 is 24. I can break this down as cube root of 8 times the cube root of 3. So the cube root of 8 is just 2, and we still are left with the cube root of 3. And the next two I have is this type. They have the variables in them. So basically what I'm going to do with this one is write this as negative y to the 5th to the 3rd power. So that's, I mean not to the 3rd power, but to the 1/3 power. Because that's your root. That 3 just means 1/3. So what you do is, this is 5/3, right? So that would be 5/3 if you multiply those two. And you divide, 3 goes into 5 one time, and we're left over with 2. So what we're going to do, since we have this, we have 1, and that means I can pull out 1 negative y. I am left with 2 inside. So that's going to be, I still have my cube root, and I'm left with 2 inside. And I pulled out the negative, the first one. And one of the videos I'm going to do is going to deal with the rational way of writing this as well. Okay, for this one, the only thing I can pull out is this. So if you rewrite this, the cube root of negative 27 is negative 3. Since my power is bigger than my 2, so basically if I, this is your power, 2 is your power, and 3 is your root. If your root is smaller than your power, you can't pull it out. So we just have to leave that inside the radical. Okay, here we have 2 of them put together, so since these are cube roots, I'm going to write this as 27 times 3, and we already did the 24, which was 8 times 3. I'm going to break this up further, so that's cube root of 27 times the cube root of 3 times the cube root of 8 times the cube root of 3. So the cube root of 27 is just 3. Cube root of 8 is just 2. And you can multiply these two together. So that would be the cube root of 3 times 3. And what you're left with is 6 times the cube root of 9. You can't pull the 9 out because it's not square root, it's cube root. Okay, for this one, we're going to figure out cube roots here. So on the cube roots, I can write this as negative 216 times 2. And when you break this up, negative 216 times the cube root of 2. Well, the cube root of negative 216 is negative 6. So we're left with negative 6 times the cube root of 2. We have to leave the 2 in the inside of the radical. And the last one we have is this. Now, on this one, when the numbers are real big, sometimes it's easier, if you don't want to get too complicated, it's just multiply these two. And when you multiply these two, we get square root of 6,300. And then you can break that down as 900 times 7. So we have the square root of 900 times the square root of 7. Square root of 900 is just 30. And then we're left with the square root of 7. The next video I'm going to do is adding and subtracting and factoring radicals. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.